Remember Ebrahim Rassool, the brown envelope premier? He was accused of paying journalists to write positive stories. Now, those allegations were not proven, and the ANC's backed him again for the premier post in the Western Cape. Is the province ready for him? Was a new candidate needed? Ebrahim Rassool is my guest tonight. It's very good to have you with us in our Cape Town studio. I'm sure you're sick and tired of that title.
No, look, I think that I wouldn't mind a title that is true, but if people have had 10 years to prove something and they haven't, then I think the title should disappear because they've not been able to put up, and so they should shut up.
Okay, tell us what you're going to do to make that title disappear, and I'm assuming that you don't think it's going to have any impact on your run for the premiership.
No, I must say that I have no sleepless nights about it. My conscience is clear, and I think we're moving on. I must also correct one other thing, and that is that I'm not doing this to become Premier of the Western Cape. That is something I've done before. It's not something I'm keen to do again. I'm part of a general effort for the African National Congress in the Western Cape to be able to reposition itself, to be able to regain its non-racial ethic, to be able to become a sharper opposition, to be able to run a credible election campaign, to win the trust of the people of the Western Cape, of all demographics in the Western Cape. And I must say that we have had some enormous successes. There's an enthusiasm. The ANC has been able in the last 2 months to gain about 9,000 volunteers for its election campaign. It has structures in 40 local election teams. It has branch election teams. It's running an amazing number of conferences and so forth.
And what do you put that down to, Mr. Rassool?
Enthusiasm is back, and people feel. I think it's put down to two things. The one is that the ANC nationally is seen to be cleaning up, to be renewing itself. And on the other hand, I think that the Democratic Alliance has been making a royal mess, that it is now shown that while they were pontificating against Jacob Zuma, that they were in fact covering up some of their own allegations of nepotism, corruption, racism within the party, and so forth. So I think that the people of the Western Cape are ready to consider an alternative, and the job of the ANC is to win their trust and to say, we are ready to be humble again, and we are ready to renew ourselves, and we are ready for your vote. But that is a long process that we need to be able to get into.
The DA is creating.
I think that that is absolutely clear because today, for example, what we were able to do is to launch a bid for a class action against the DA by taking thousands of water bills that people have had, people having billed 800,000, 100,000 rand in arrears, 600% increase in tariffs year on year. And I think that people are saying, have we been taken for a ride? Has Day Zero been a hoax? No one denies that there was a drought. No one denies that we must save water. But why are we being punished for saving water with excessive bills and excessive tariff increases? And that is a court case inspired by the ANC. And we are looking forward to whether the DA will respond on the 9th of September by giving in to the demands that our people are making, or whether they want to fight this thing all the way to the Constitutional Court. So I think that that's really the way in which the African National Congress becomes the party again that takes up the causes of ordinary people.
Okay, how hard do you think is it to hear that coming from the ANC, considering the high levels of corruption? I mean, we just, every single day we hear more allegations of corruption and theft. You do say that the ANC is now focusing on cleaning up its act. But what's it going to take, do you think? What sort of tangible events need to happen, tangible things?
I've been out in the Riversdale area 2 nights ago. I was out in the Athlone area last night. And people are owning, ANC members are owning the Zondo Commission. They are owning the cleanup at Transnet, at Eskom, and all of those kind of things. They know that those were aberrations for the ANC, dangerous and costly aberrations, and they want to see people going to court. They want to see people going to jail because they know that that is the only way the ANC will redeem itself.
Okay, but is that ever going to happen?
Every time the Zondo Commission is on TV, I think we must make sure that it happens, because I think unless we clean up inside, we won't be able to win trust outside. That's the message that I'm certainly picking up, and people are going to give us a chance if they see a consistency between our outward posture and our internal actions.
Okay. Your position and what you're going to try and do to clean up the act, obviously that sounds admirable. I know you've got a good track record when it comes to dealing with gangs and gangsterism. I mean, yesterday, as you know, we heard shocking statistics when it comes to crime in the country, particularly in the Western Cape. What can you do now if you were to able to secure a more permanent role there?
I think that if we are able, even as a lobbying ANC, as an opposition in the Western Cape, to tell the national minister we need a special rapid intervention unit that deals with two priority crimes that are shown in the statistics. Gangsterism on the one hand and taxi violence on the other hand. I think what we need to be able to do is to get back to what worked for us 10 years ago, which was 20,000 Bambananis need to be on the streets, reassuring people, being a link with the police, and winning support and information from people about where the problem areas are. We need to target the 200 gangster and taxi violent lords. We need to target them and put them in jail like we did 10 years ago. We need to be able to have a visible policing presence and an investigation capacity and an intelligence capacity again in the Western Cape. We don't need a provincial government that simply abdicates even on the regulatory and enforcement issues with regard to taxis. If taxis are the cause of most murders in Nyanga, you've got to make sure that that sector is regulated in Nyanga. You can't just find them for speeding in Cape Town and leave them to their own devices in Nyanga. I think that those are really the kind of issues. We've got to revive the Prevention of Organised Crime Act legislation and put gangs away on the presumption that a crime will be committed rather than waiting for a crime to be committed. I think that those were the successful formulas that we used to have before, and I must say that in the role that I'm in now, that's certainly a campaign that we would want to be rolling out even as an opposition in the Western Cape.
Okay, Mr. Rassool, Mane is calling in to us from Cape Town. Go ahead, Mane. He's got a question for you.
I've just got a question for Mr. Rassool. Whatever the ANC say, they are lying, because there's nothing they did for the colored people in the District 6. Absolute nothing. You know, there's people are still waiting for 40 years waiting for a house in District 6. What did they do? Nothing. They're more worried about land claims and that, but they're not worried about, not one colored man will vote for them again. Not even for the DA. Because they did nothing for the colored at all, lady.
Okay, thank you, Mane. What's your response, Mr. Rassool?
Yeah, no, I want to say that when I was Premier, all that land in District 6 was provincial property, and we transferred it to the city of Cape Town because they were the responsible authority to put the substructure in place, the pipes and the electricity, and then to be able to hand it over to people. I must say that the greatest burst of development in District 6 happened then, and very little has happened subsequently. But I think that this is not a competition between us. I think that what we need to understand is how do we support a reasonable land reform process that goes with the gist of expropriation without compensation, because we cannot pay market-related values for land that was taken from people. We need to be able to have access to land in order for restitution claims, such as what Mani speaks about, as well as redistribution claims, as people are wanting. And we must say
Mr.
that
Rahul, can I just jump in here quickly? I mean, this is something that you often hear from the coloured community.
Are living in Cape Town.
Sorry, the coloured community often says this to us, that they are overlooked by the ANC in the Western Cape and other parts of the country. I mean, that is something that needs to be addressed now.
I want to say that what we need is to be able to continue to build out the services in Mitchell's Plain like we did with the hospitals, as we did in Khayelitsha, that we need to continue to build out the housing programs like we did in Joe Slovo, as well as in the many coloured rural communities across the Western Cape. I think that those are the things that I think we can point to. I think we can point, for example, to the way in which crime particularly had been dealt with, and how many of the 20,000 Bambananis in fact came from the coloured community, and how many of the coloured areas were part of the 27 priority areas for development. So I think that very clearly there has been a problem, and what we need to be able to do is to say that you've tried the DA for 10 years, you're still crying the same song. I think that the African National Congress has a track record of up to 10 years ago, and maybe we need to be able to look at what is possible there. We may even need to return to the provincial demographics in which we allocate the kind of contracts, the tenders, the employment based on provincial demographics, as opposed to, say, for example, the simple imposition of national demographics. I think that these are really the hardcore stuff that I think of delivery, rather than the identity politics that I think is a free-for-all at this moment.
Okay, Ebrahim Rassool, thank you very much for sharing your vision with us. Still ahead, will NSFAS cope with next year's students' funding demands? This is Tonight with Jane Dutton.